Good day everybody, welcome again to Mind Prosperity. We are so excited today. We have an interview with Ansa Lange on parenting. Before we get there, I just want to tell you guys, we're a company called Mind Prosperity, and we believe if you want to prosper in life, your mind has to go first, meaning your thoughts have to go first. You have to deal with your emotions, you have to deal with your thinking, with your imagination, and that's what we teach. We teach it in companies, we teach it in groups, we teach it in families, and we have these two amazing booklets available that I do teach in companies: Emotional Intelligence in the Workplace, and then I also have the Influence of Mindset in the Workplace. If you guys want to know more and if you guys are interested in our material, please send me an email. My email address will be on the screen so that you can make contact with me. I do my sessions in companies, in groups, in families, and I do it on social media platforms, so wherever you are in the world, you can make use of our company. Also, I want to encourage you to like, to subscribe, and you can leave a comment and send this video to people if you believe that's going to help them. And I also want to encourage you to go visit our website, www.mindprosperity.co.za. Also tell you a lot about us, and on our website we have our Emotional Intelligence in the Workplace online on the platform of Safe Training that you will also find on our website. Without any further ado, it's my great honor to introduce Ansa Lange as I'm going to talk to her about parenting. Enjoy. Okay everybody, welcome to Mind Prosperity yet again. We're very excited today to present and to introduce Ansa Lange to you, and today we're going to speak about parenting. So for those of you guys who are here for the first time, who are checking out our videos for the first time, we are a company called Mind Prosperity, and the reason we call our company Mind Prosperity is because we believe any place in life that you want to prosper in is you have to go with your mind first, or you have to go head first, or another way I can say it is see it before you see it. You have to see it in your imagination, you have to see it in your mind a lot of times before you will see it in real life. So today I want to say, whether you are a parent or whether you want to be a parent one day, this session is going to help you, and this session is going to be very good information to help you in the area of parenting. Ansa, thank you so much for being on our couch today.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
I didn't know I was going to start like that, but I did. So, first thing I want to know is just tell us a bit about yourself, about your company, about what you do.
Okay, so 24 years ago, when I became a parent, I realized that I would not be able to do this on my own. And I found myself a brilliant parenting coach. Back then they were called therapists or psychologists or play therapists or whatever. And she really supported me through my parenting journey. We worked together for a very long time, and I eventually started presenting some of her material, and sadly she passed away, and I was able to carry on with it. So my passion for children really came from there, where I saw the difference in our own children when I used the techniques she taught, because it was never a case of reinventing the wheel. It was just keeping the wheel turning.
I think a very interesting thing about what you're saying is, like, I was in this environment where the principles were applied, and in this environment I could pick up that this actually works.
Yes.
And that's where you got your passion and your excitement.
Yes, absolutely, because I saw it working with my own children. And we will speak about boundaries a little bit later, but when the day I knew that this works, that I'm busy with, is when I gave my son very clear boundaries, and he was not very happy with it, and he said to me, I need to see Elise. I knew that now he wanted to see the play therapist, and it was because he realized that the boundaries I laid down, I'm expecting him to stay within those boundaries. And he needed some help because he knew he was not going to get past me. Then I knew what I was doing was the right thing, because children do need boundaries, but we'll speak about the boundaries just a bit later.
I just want to ask this question quickly, if it's okay, before we carry on, because I'm very, very intrigued. What is play therapy?
It's something that that therapists apply when children can't really express or explain in words what they feel and what they need to process. So there are very many play techniques that therapists use, and it gives a child an opportunity to play out their anxiety and their trauma and their challenges, etc.
So it's almost like acting.
Yeah, they play in a sandbox with different figurines and all sorts of different things. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
That's not my scope of practice, though.
Mine neither. I studied psychology for 4 years, and I've never heard of play therapy, or like maybe I just didn't pay attention in that class.
Yes, no. I use different techniques.
Okay.
But that is what play therapy is about. Yeah.
I want to ask this: you are a parent, because I just heard you speaking about your son. Are there any things that you could say, like you wish that somebody told you this before you became a parent? And what would those things be?
Yes. There's a saying that it says you need a village to raise a child. And I think every single person who starts with a family, they need to know that you have to have a village in place. It's not something you do solo. You need mentors, you need supporters, you really need to choose wisely who you put in your village to help you raise your child, because at certain ages children don't want to listen to their parents. They don't want the advice. They don't want to hear anything from their parents. Our children will often say to me, we need a mother, not a therapist, and that's when you have to have your village in place, where someone else will step in with the same values to share the knowledge or the information you want them to have. So as a parent, I would really encourage people who want to become parents or new parents to get yourself a village in place. Gather your tribe that you want to help you raise your child, because you're going to need it.
What I got from the conversation is this village, they speak more to the children. Am I right?
Yes, the village is there to get the message the parent wants to get across, to get that message across to the children. But it's also to support the parents and to help the parent package this message in the way that the child will actually accept it. Years ago, I read in a book James Dobson wrote that you need to choose somebody to teach your child the important lessons in life that you want them to learn, because they don't want to learn it from you. And that is a very good example of the village that you want intact when you start raising children.
And how would you choose this village? You probably cannot just choose anybody.
Yeah, I think you need to choose. It makes me think about godparents in certain cultures and years ago, having that godparent who's also responsible for laying down values and supporting and so on. So you would obviously choose people with the same values and people of different age groups, because sometimes they need a teenager, when they're young, and sometimes they need somebody that they can relate to at a certain age. You will choose people close to you, and you can also use stories, because children always listen. And when you discuss something with your husband or your wife or a friend, and you discuss the lesson that you want them to hear, as if you're not telling them what the lesson is, you chat to your friend about it, and they are all ears, they listen. So they get the message, but you're actually just doing it, you're sneaking in from the back end to get the message across. Where if you speak to them directly, it will be, oh, mom, but yeah.
That's very, very good. And tell me, what would you say are some of the greatest challenges that parents face today?
Certainly that we are not equipped to deal with the world we're raising kids in, because we didn't grow up in what the world looks like now. So we're parenting from our frame of reference, and it looks so much different, and it changes so much because of the social media and the digital world and so on. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges parents face. The social media, or the social media that children are exposed to, and it's not as simple as not giving my child a smartphone, because they are exposed to social media, they're exposed to YouTube, the internet, whatever. So it's about teaching them the skills they need to manage the information they're exposed to, and helping them understand why you want to protect them against certain material, and what that it's harmful and why it's harmful, and that certain things you can't undo, you can't unsee. There's no rewind in life when you've seen stuff like that. So they really need to understand where you're coming from, and not just feel that you are being an obstructive parent who is trying to keep them small, or take something away from them. So I think that is a huge challenge today. We as parents are not equipped to deal with how life is, because life has changed. Life is different, and they are getting exposed to stuff that we are not equipped to deal with. They really need to be protected, and we don't know how to protect them, and against what, because it's not part of our frame of reference. So that's again part of the village that you need to put in place for yourself. Use resources and get people involved who you trust, so that your child gets the necessary information, develops the necessary skills, so that they can use the social media in a safe way, for example, social media.
That's very good. And then what advice would you give to new parents? Maybe something people don't really talk about that often.
Yes. Lately, I've been working with a lot of challenges in sexual education, and I think that is something parents also don't know how to handle, so they leave it until they get this dreaded question of where do babies come from. So for parents, the sexual education or the sex conversation is very difficult to have. So they often leave that conversation until it's so big and so uncomfortable that they then rather not have it. So to just normalize that conversation, and because to a child it's just part of development, it's like your nose or your ears, and just to keep that line of communication open, so that the sex education doesn't become something separate from the child or the parenting, so that it stays integrated. And there are amazing resources. I had a very interesting conversation with one of South Africa's gurus, Edith Venter, a while back, and that live recording is on my Future Fit Parenting Instagram and Facebook, and also on the YouTube channel, where we unpacked sex education and how the schools present it to children, and whose responsibility is it? Is it the parents or the schools? Because they can teach the children the theoretic side of it, the theory behind it. But I think it's the parents' duty to do it in a context of their values, because it's not the school's responsibility to teach the values.
Yeah, that's very good.
It needs to come from the parents, and then the school simply teaches, I think they call it life orientation. They simply teach the information, but it needs to be done integrated in a value system, and that is where the parents are so necessary. So I think that's something parents are ill-equipped to handle. And because of that, and because there's not enough exposure, people shy away, or parents shy away from it, and then eventually it becomes a big, issue. When our daughter was I think she was 4 or 5 years old. We drove past Mediclinic, and she asked me, where do babies come from? And I was taken aback a little bit. I thought, sure, this is very early, but it's a very good opportunity to get into the conversation on that level. But my parenting coach of years ago taught me that whenever you are unsure of what to answer, to just maybe reflect it back and just say, where do you think babies came from? So I said, where do you think babies come from? She said, I don't know. Did they all come from this hospital? Because she was born there, her cousin was born there, her brother was born there, all our friends from the Platteland, they were all born there, those children. So to her, that's where babies came from. And it was just so amazing that the conversation could just flow around the babies get born here, but that is not where they come from. And then from there you take it a little step further, and you just keep it age appropriate. And if you always throw the ball back to them and say, what do you know about it? What have you heard about it? What do you think about it? You'll always know where they are, and that's where you meet them.
And how would you say, when would parents know when and what to say?
I think they must just listen to where their children are, and meet them there, and give them little bits of information so that they can integrate that, and then ask them, is there something else you need to know? Is there something else you heard that you may not understand? What else do you want me to tell you? And they will definitely lead you. We have a totally different perspective on what they actually need, and if we just kind of be mindful about this process and just be there, they will lead us. And we don't have to launch into a huge conversation, adult conversation about where babies come from. It can just be age appropriate, and just to normalize it. It's something beautiful, and every opportunity there is to keep the lines of communication open, and to meet your child where he or she is.
That's great. So I just want to say to everybody on this part of the message that if you want to contact Ansa, if you want to know more about how and what they teach, you can find them on Facebook, on Instagram. They also have a YouTube channel, and also her email address will be on the screen if you guys want to make contact. So Ansa, earlier, it's my pleasure.
So it's Future Fit Parenting.
Yeah.
Are the accounts names, and you'll find me under that. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Earlier we spoke about boundaries.
Yes.
How do you bring in boundaries when it comes to parenthood and with your children?
Okay, I think it's probably one of the most important questions of today, because children feel safe within boundaries. And the moment that a child does not have a clear, safe boundary, they operate from a place of fear. Okay. So they're insecure, they're uncertain, it holds them back. It really hampers their development, because they don't know where their safe parameters are, and they don't know how far can I go with exploring this, or where is the safe, where's the safety net? Up till where will I be safe? So children often, you get the two kinds of children, some who are not scared of a boundary and they'll always push it, and then the other group of children, two main groups of children, and this group will be so scared of falling off the cliff because there's no boundary, that they will just not even explore it. So they will just rather stay where they are, which is not a very good thing, because you want children to explore, you want them to grow, you want
definitely.
them to, So when there's a clear boundary, they know within this parameter, I can really explore, and that is also why it's good when children push boundaries, because then you know there is a boundary in place and they feel safe enough to get up to that boundary. And as soon as they've learned the lessons and the responsibilities around functioning within these boundaries, then you move the boundaries a bit because they need to develop and they need to grow.
That's good.
And with these boundaries, you have an opportunity to teach the emotional intelligence, which then actually the most important is the emotional regulation. To know that when I get to this boundary and it is a frustrating boundary, how do I regulate myself so that I can still function within this boundary? So boundaries are the bottom line, and that's where the discipline dovetails with the boundaries.
And when would you say is discipline good and healthy, and when does it become too harsh?
Okay, so harsh discipline can hold a child back from developing. As soon as they're scared to try things, because the discipline is so harsh, they will also not develop fully. A firm, gentle discipline, but very firm, is the best way, because then they know what to expect. It's always the same, it's predictable, they don't have to operate from a place of fear. So harsh discipline can be internalized as a very critical parent, a critical onslaught on me as the child, So if it's harsh, it's hurtful. And when it's firm and predictable, it's helpful.
So if I understand you correctly on that, like a critical reaction will cause a child to feel I'm the problem, not what I did is the problem.
Yeah.
And what you want to do is you want to explain, or you want the child to feel, I'm not the problem. What I did maybe was a problem. And I think when it comes to this whole thing about fear and boundaries, I think what you're trying to explain is like a boundary has to be respected but not feared.
Yes, absolutely.
Am I correct if I say?
Spot on, yeah.
Yeah, I'm spot on.
Spot on.
So I can become a parent now.
Spot on.
You didn't say yes or no, just spot on.
Absolutely spot on.
So how would you say do you teach the children these boundaries without kind of like suffocating them?
That is very important. And when I do my parenting workshops, parents are always very startled when I say to them, the definition of a good parent is to raise your child in such a way that they don't need you.
Oh, that's good.
Because
I want to become a parent now. My children won't need me.
Because if you always do everything for your child, the message you give them is, I don't have faith in your ability to do it for yourself.
Wow, that's good.
Okay, so as soon as a child can do something on their own, that's the good time to hand it over to the child. It's not that you're not supporting the child. It is just that you show your child, I've got absolute faith in your ability. I'm here if you battle, and battling is a good thing. It's good to learn how to struggle. We shouldn't be scared of struggling. And it's an opportunity to try again and to grow and to find different ways of doing what you're trying to do. So to allow them to make their mistakes and allow them to grow from their mistakes and not fear making mistakes.
That's good.
That it's fine. I'm not going to be in trouble when I try something and it doesn't work out the first time.
Yeah.
So that's very important. But parents do kind of double take when I open my workshops with a successful parent is a parent who's not needed by the child.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
all in context, of course. Which comes out then in the workshop.
Yeah.
But that is the bottom line. If you want to be a successful parent, your child needs to know how to fly, and they need to be able to leave the nest and fly on their own.
And as I understand, speaking about values, also in your workshop you teach them about core values.
That's right. Yes, and I often find in my practice that when we start working with values, very few people can actually name their values. because there are things that you value, and those things change throughout life. But then we have our core values, which make us who we are. And the reason I speak about 5 is just because there's so many. You know, if you go and research it, you'll find a list of 30 up to 300, and they all overlap. But it's just easier to work with 5 values or 6 values. And in our home, this is what we do. In our home, we don't shout. In our home, we give each other a turn to speak. So if you can identify the 5 core values that you live and stand for in your house, then it's easy to teach that to your child, because it's clear. You don't have to go and find things and reasons. You can always tie everything that you teach back to in
the core
our
values.
house.
Yeah.
This is the value. In our house, we do it like this. And also to say in our house, because other households differ. Other people have different values, and it's not wrong.
Yeah.
But to know that we function within these 5 core values. It could be 4, it could be 6.
If a child, you know, goes through bullying at school, you know, and I think it sometimes can sometimes relate to values. You know, you can sometimes have a child with values, and they maybe get bullied because of their values. I'm not saying always, but how do you teach a child to handle that or work through that?
Okay, yeah. And that's a very valid topic, because we see that so much. It's almost as if it's just a bigger and a bigger problem in schools. And I think it's also got to do with children not being strong enough to stand up for themselves, which then goes back to at home. Am I allowed to have a voice at home? Am I allowed to express that I'm not happy with the way you're doing? Am I being respected enough at home that I can expect to be respected somewhere else? Am I worthy enough of saying, no, I'm not happy with your behavior or with your comment or whatever? And that comes back to at home. Am I allowed, you know, to have a viewpoint? Am I respected enough, and do I believe enough in myself that I don't have to stand, stand helplessly against a bully because I've never been allowed to say no. So yeah, in schools, in life, we find bullies. You know, adults bully adults. So it's a matter of teaching your child that this is our values, and teach them how to say no, because if you kind of practice at home how to say no about things in a respectful way, you can set your boundary and say to somebody at school or a bully, look, this is not the way I do it, or I don't agree with the way you're treating me, or with what you're saying, or whatever. So it all goes back to what do we allow our children at home? Because that is actually where they develop the skills and where they get the tools to go out and, you know, manage themselves out there. And there will always be a bully. Always. Someone, you'll always have somebody in your life challenging you, whether you package it as a bully or just a boss or a colleague or a family member. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be somebody pushing your buttons, getting into your space, saying things you don't like. And if you have the skills to manage that, and to also realize that it's not always about me, it's about that person and that person's issues.
That's very good.
You know, so that you can detach from it and just see it as, okay, it's not that I am a bad person, I'm the bad person. It's just that, you know, they experience life as being against them. So they, you know, that kind of thing. So, but it goes back to what parents teach their children.
And I think what I really like is that you say, you know, this thing is real in adulthood as well. It's not only real when you're a child. And I do believe however you are trained to handle it as a child is eventually how you will be skilled to handle it as a grown-up. And that's why I also think, it's very good to know how to teach somebody to handle things like this from a young age. And I think a lot of times a person can see it as an opportunity.
Yes.
To say the fact that this is happening is an opportunity for me to teach my child, or me as a child, is an opportunity for me to learn how to handle this. I remember when I was at school, I don't know why I'm bringing this up now. I remember when I was at school, I thought as soon as I'm done with school, then I can just do what I want and be the person who I want, and all of these challenges won't be there anymore. and I think as a grown-up you think but it's crazy to think like that, but children do think like that. They think if I'm just done with this, then all the trouble is going to be done with.
Yeah. And there are important skills to teach your child, because if you can teach them how to apologize, because there's always conflict, because there are certain ways to apologize, instead of just saying, oh, I'm sorry, because oh, I'm sorry is just so easy to say. And if you teach them how to apologize, it just makes all the difference in building relationships and nurturing important relationships, keeping your tribe together. Even as a child, they need their tribe. And so if you can teach them how to say no, how to apologize, and you kind of recite it at home, you get them to practice and say, okay, if a friend says this, this is how I'm going to respond. You as parent have a responsibility to help them prepare themselves for these situations. Because if they find themselves in this situation for the first time, they're not going to know how to handle it, because they didn't even know there was a situation like that. So helping them go through these things, and have these conversations and say, what will you do when this happens? When a friend says this, what will you do? If a friend offers you a cigarette, how are you going to get out of it? So that the peer pressure and the people pleaser children fall into that trap of, I didn't know how to say no. Go through all these scenarios at home as normal conversations, so that they are prepared for all these different things that's going to happen, because it's going to happen. It's the same with the smartphones, and if somebody shows them an inappropriate video, because it's going to happen. Parents live in la-la world if they think it's not going to happen. And speak to your child about it, and how are you going to react? What are you going to say? Are you going to come and tell me so that I can help you process it? Or are you going to hide it? Are you too scared to talk to me about it? It's just...
And I think the parent's reaction to that, if you say, if a child comes home and he says to the parent, somebody gave me something inappropriate at school, and the parent kind of freaks out and gets angry, and they want to phone the school, and they want to phone the parents, and they're going to kill this person. Parents sometimes react like that. I think immediately that child thinks okay, next time I just shouldn't tell my parents.
Absolutely.
Because that's the way they reacted. So I think your reaction as a parent also tells the child if it's okay to come speak to me.
That's right.
Not your words. If I can say, a parent, I think every single parent will say to a child, please come tell me. But it's your reaction that's going to determine.
When they do come and tell you. Yeah.
That's going to determine.
And that's what I say to parents is, when you tell your child, look, come to me with any problem. Please, don't ever be scared, just come to me. And they come to you with something and you overreact, that will be the end of it. They will not ever trust you again, because for 20 years or 15 years you said to them, come to me when there's a problem. Now I come to you and you freak out. So, there's no faith in it anymore that I can actually come to you.
And this is the thing about what I always say, let your mind go first. Let your imagination go first. And I think as a parent, you should, and I don't think you know exactly what's going to happen, but I think also in your mind, imagine your child coming to you with a problem, and then already think about how you're going to react. Then it's not like this. This is why I'm always saying it's not. Don't go to somebody like Ansa when there's a problem. Go to her when there's a problem as well, but go beforehand. Go before there's any problem. Go to say, listen, but how do I deal with this when this problem arises? Go when you are single. You know, I tell, because I do a lot of weddings and stuff like that, and I always tell people, don't wait till there's a problem until you go for counseling. You know, go learn. Just go sit under leadership and just go learn. And I think this is so. If you do this beforehand, if you learn about these things beforehand, then it won't be that shock when it happens, because I've already played this out of my mind. I've already decided how I would react.
I'm prepared
in a situation like this.
And that goes back to like do the same with your child when you prepare them to handle conflict or to say no or to apologize. It's that same thing that you say. Play it out beforehand so that you are prepared and that you're not caught off guard.
And I think teaching, when we come back to boundaries, teaching boundaries in the home is also important to teach a child, but you should have your boundaries as well. Let's get not just the boundaries in our house, but you have to have core values.
Yes.
That when you go to school, when you go out there, make sure people don't overstep your boundaries. Yes. Because and I see it in adulthood, you know, when people get hurt in romantic relationships or friendships, for instance, they always get hurt because somebody overstepped the boundary that they didn't really think they should have had.
Yes.
And then the boundary normally comes after the hurt.
Yes, that's right.
But you don't want the boundary to come after the hurt, right?
That's right. And the moment you understand or you know your core values, you will understand your triggers. Because the moment somebody oversteps that boundary and violates your core value, you get triggered. So it just working on your core values and understanding that makes you understand your triggers and why you get angry when certain things happen. So you can manage all of that so much better. Like you say, what did you say about your mind? Let your mind go.
Yeah. So what I always say is your mind or your imagination always has to go first.
Yes,
you always, right. or you can say to say it very easy, to say it much easier, see it before you see it.
Yes, absolutely. That's beautifully said.
So for me, it will be like if I get into this situation or in a similar situation, how would I handle it? Because what I've seen sometimes happen, if you don't have a boundary and somebody hurts you, instead of now putting up a boundary, you put up a fence. And putting up a fence means I don't just keep the bad things out. I now start to keep everything out. Now something good happens in your life, but because you've developed such a distrust, and because you've been hurt so many times because of a lack of boundaries, now you put up a fence.
You just isolate yourself from everything. The hurt and the love.
And a lot of it comes from, I've seen a lot of it comes from a young age. A lot of it comes from, I've been hurt at school, I've been hurt at home. And maybe it wasn't just a big hurt. It can be like a child could say, like, I couldn't speak to my parents because they freaked out. Now the spouse comes and the spouse is like, but this person never wants to speak to me. And that's offense. It's not just a healthy boundary anymore.
And there's so many tools, like you say, if you see it first, that you can actually use, because when our children started sleeping out at a young age, we would talk about feeling uncomfortable, and that mommy would phone you to say good night, and when you feel uncomfortable, just tell me, the key word is teddy bear. I need my teddy, I forgot my teddy bear at home. Then I knew to phone the parents and say, we've made other plans, I need to fetch my child, I need to sleep at home. Because your child is not in a position to use the host's phone number or the telephone and say, I don't feel comfortable, come and fetch me, this and that's happening. So, see it before it happens and say to your child, look, we've got a code word. When I phone you to say good night, just use this sentence, or, whatever works for you. But prepare them so that they know when they're in an uncomfortable situation, this is how I handle it, and my parents got my back. I just need to get that code word out or that code sentence.
That's very good. I want to ask this before we get to our final thoughts. If you detect that your child might have some or other disability, such a learning disability, but it's not diagnosed yet, but you get the suspicion that there is something like that, how would you handle that?
Albert, that's not in my scope of practice, but I do think it's important to get help as soon as possible. Explore it. I think maybe the best place would be to start at the teacher, or maybe the doctor, the GP, and just reach out and read up so that you have your own questions to ask, and find somebody that you feel comfortable with enough to explore this and unpack it, because sometimes it's anxiety that prevents a child from concentrating, and then you need to actually just address the anxiety so that there's more capacity to concentrate. Sometimes there's something else, you know, sometimes there's a chemical problem, sometimes there's a dyslexia or whatever, and all these things can be managed very well if you can just get to it early enough and get the right diagnosis, and there are many professionals out there to help with that.
Brilliant. Ansa, thank you so much for being here today. I think this information was so valuable. I want to ask, are there any final thoughts that you want to give to any parent out there, or somebody who wants to become a parent?
Yes. I think the biggest thing to remember is that you're practicing.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
You've never done it before.
Yeah.
So you are making mistakes, and you will be making mistakes, and that is okay. That's fine. And also to say to your children, sure, mommy made a mistake now, but it's the first time I had to handle this, so I am practicing on you. You know, I would often say to my kids, you know what, I didn't have a practice run with 2 kids that I just threw in the bin because I now made many mistakes. I'm sorry, let's try this again. Can you maybe help me to handle this better? Or how would you, you know, want me to handle it? So yes, as a parent, I can just tell you, if you think you're not making mistakes, you're making a mistake, because we all make mistakes, and it's okay. That is how we all grow. That's where our children's character gets developed, and that's part of the journey. And to just have self-compassion and embrace the journey, embrace the mistakes, and the mistakes bring opportunity to connect and to strengthen that relationship.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for being on the channel.
Thanks very much. It was really nice.
It was great to have you. Thank you for everybody who watched, and I do believe you guys enjoyed this. So from Mind Prosperity, we love you, and we'll see you soon again. Goodbye.